welcome to my channel, The Quilting Compound, and my name is Jamie, and today I'm going to show you this new scrap quilt I'm working on. As you know, and if you followed me on any of my videos, I've been moving my room. I'm still moving my room. I have a lot of fabric to put away, but I have a lot of scraps, and so I am working on another scrap quilt, and I'm going to go ahead and show you the block now. This is what I've been working on. And this is just one part of the block because you will make 4 of these to make this part of the block. So you can turn the block and have it this way, or you can have it go this way. So my plan, and if you can see back on the wall, I'm almost halfway through. I will have this quilt will be 4 across and 4 down. So that will be a total of 16 of these blocks. Okay, these blocks measure 16 inches finished. So you can use this quilt this way or this way. So either way you want to turn it, because I couldn't figure out which way I wanted those blocks to go. But if you do 4x4 with the 16 blocks, you can have it either way. So what I did first is I cut all my scrap strips here. They are 2.5 by 4.5. And I'm doing dark light, dark light. And there is a reason why I'm doing dark light, dark light. With these blocks, up in the, when I'm looking at it, at the left-hand corner always starts with a dark. So it would be dark, light, and then light, then dark. So it will be every other. And the reason why I do that is when I go to press, I will press towards the dark and then away from the light blocks. And then when you do that, all your seams will nest on this block right here. And I'm going to show you how I sew the blocks with 2.5-inch squares with a line drawn. All my squares are from scrap. If I did not cut into any fat quarters, any yardage, what I have dug out has been leftovers or whatever. Now, by the time I'm done with this, may I have to cut into some fat quarters or yardage? Maybe. But I hope not, because I still have a table over there piled up with scraps. So hopefully I can get through it and use a lot more of my scraps up. So these, which will be the outside corner here, they're 1.5-inch squares. And I went ahead and I've drawn all my lines on because it's easier to go ahead and draw your lines on this project because we can chain piece. So what I have done here on my table, you can see part of it. I am going to move the camera in just one moment. And I'm going to show you how I place the squares on each of the block. And so we're going to go ahead and make this block and get another scrap quilt going. So I have laid out my new block pieces, and it will go dark, light, light, dark, dark, light, light, dark. So every other one, just like I sewed on here. Now, some of them are questionable. Like I have a few, like maybe with this fabric here, maybe with a dark fabric, if I put it with black, this would be the light. So, you know, it's all up to your judgment. But the reason why I do the dark light is because of the pressing. So what I will do is I will take one of my 2.5-inch squares. You need to draw a line down the center because you're going to sew on that. I do have to change my foot, and you would think I would remember to do that. So I'll take my dark, and with this block, what you want to do is it will be dark goes down. And what I mean is you will put from the middle of the bottom up to the top right. And when you sew, you will fold this down. So dark goes down like that. So I'm going to show you what how I'm going to press this, how it's folded and trimmed. So I have sewed this, and now I will trim this. Is what waste you have left. So if you want to keep that, I will show you what it will make. Here's two that I went ahead and sewed together. They're about, this one before I trimmed is 1 3/4. This one I trimmed it up and got it all even. And it's just a little over 1.5 inches. So you could keep these little pieces and for, you know, an additional project if you wanted. But I don't know if I'm going to do that. So this gets folded down. And then I'm going to press towards the dark. And what I will do is I'll go ahead and show you how to make this one piece. But we can chain piece all of these. So our next step is to take the 1.5 inch square that we've cut. And it goes in the opposite corner. So the line would go from the mid left up to the top right. So it would look like this. And you will also trim this just like the other side. And it gets pressed towards the dark, pressed towards the brown here. So this is what our block looks like. So that goes in the top left, just like this. So our scrap piece beside it, which measures 2.5 by 4.5, when you go to put your 2.5 inch square on it, you will put it from the bottom right corner up to the left midway. So when you sew and flip, it will go up. So my thing is down is dark, the flip up is to the light. So look up to the light. So the light gets flipped up. So I'll trim that piece off, press, and with the light, you press up towards the white square that you just sewed and flipped. So you press up. So with this light, you do the same thing. You take a 1.5 inch square opposite corner and sew it, and it will flip to the outside of the block. So here is this piece. So when you place it on your block here that you'll make, it will go like this. So you will create this triangle, which will eventually be a diamond. Now, could you do it like this if you wanted? Yes. But when I started this, I started them all with this in the middle. So what we'll do now, since we know what we're doing here, you go on the light block, it goes up to the light, and you also press towards the light. The dark blocks go down for dark and you press towards the dark for your dark. So this is what I have been doing. I'll go ahead, and if you want to get all your dark blocks, I've done that too. I've done it several different ways, but for this right now, I'm gonna go ahead and chain piece these. But it is easier to go ahead and have your squares with the line drawn the way they are gonna go on your block. Just go ahead and place them that way. If you're gonna chain piece all your darks together, then all your lights. So remember, dark, this is my dark block, it goes down. So this is a light, so it goes up. So you would place your line at the top here to go down. And when you go to trim, it will go up. So dark, this is a dark block, it goes down. Light goes up. Down, dark. And you're going to get tired of me saying this. So up. Remember, look up to the light. So those are done. So we can go ahead and trim these apart if you want. I've kind of done it, you know, a few different ways to see which way would be the fastest. So, but for this, we'll just go ahead and trim them all. I'm going to trim them all, and I'm going to press them, and I'll be back with the next step. I have pressed and trimmed my light and my dark pieces. So now I will take my 1.5 inch squares and put those on the corners of each of my strips here. And I'll just simply just chain piece on down like I did the other triangles. And remember, it goes in the opposite corner. So here is my chain pieced strips of scraps. And I think what I'm also going to do, which I have a lot of strip sets already cut out from some of my scraps and older fabric. And I am not, nothing is in color order like I usually try to group by color. It is literally whatever, just light, dark. All of my, none of these are the same. They're whatever I could find. I already had some of these actually cut in strips. So that was easy. So nothing is really put in color. But what I think, I have a few fat quarters that I think I did like a mystery bundle. And they... you know, they always say there's no such thing as ugly fabric, but it's probably fabric that I wouldn't have looked at and bought. So some of that fabric may end up in this scrap quilt too. So I'm going to trim these off and press, and then I will be back to show you how I have decided what I think is the best way to construct this block. So I've got each of my sew and flips sewn on to each block. Now, the best way that I found to sew this together is actually like this. Flip over each one of these. I've done it where I sewed all down, but I think it just works better like this. And, of course, you can chain piece this too. And I have to change my foot because I need my 1/4 inch foot. And because we pressed towards this sew and flip square here, which we have cut. So we pressed away from the light here, and we pressed towards the dark on this block. When we flip them over, your seams all nest. So they nest, and that will keep them together, and hopefully you'll have a more accurate block. If you want to press open, by all means. I kind of like to nest these type blocks. I just have better luck with them matching up and the seams looking better. Okay, I'll trim these apart. So I had this as the top, but it really doesn't matter. So those seams look really good. And with this, I will press towards the dark. And because they're every other, of course, they will nest. And that seam looks good. And that will go towards the dark. This will go towards the dark. See, that turned out really good. Whoops. This way. And those seams lined up, and that will go towards the dark. So when you sew this block together, since you've pressed towards the dark, those will nest all the way up. And that is how I have constructed the block. And what I also did do is I went ahead and took some of my lights and then some of my darks here, and I went ahead and just chain pieced where they were supposed to be and did the 2.5 and the 1.5, had those done, and I just stacked them on top of each other and went ahead and chain pieced them that way. But I want to go ahead and show you this block. I think I can get away with, you know, I don't really like to finger press. So I'm going to press these and we're going to sew this block up. So here are all my pieces. They're all pressed. And now I'm going to flip this over, nest all my seams as best as I can, so we can have an accurate block, all of our points meeting. And I would typically chain piece, but I want to see if everything lined up and everything looks good. So that is the bottom of the block. And here is the top, and everything looks pretty good. This could have been a little bit over closer, but this is a scrap quilt. All those corners, they're all meeting, and I'm good with that. So now flip it over and sew this. And here is the finished block. So what we will do here is I'm going to press, and I'll press all one way because I also have this block made and then the original block. So I'm just going to need one more block. See what all I can move over and get in the camera here. I'm going to need one more block to make this one complete block, which will be 16.5 unfinished. So 16 finished, and we'll need 16 total of these. And so you can also look at it like this. You can turn it this way. So I'm going to press this, and I'm going to make another block, and we're going to sew all of this together. So here is my block layout. Each block, of course, this is your first block you sew. You need 4 per block. So that would be 64 of the 8-inch blocks sewn into one block, which is a 16.5 unfinished block. And we will need 16 of those to complete this quilt, and that would measure 64 by 64. So what I've done is I've pressed all one way on one block and the other way on another, of course, so they will nest. So I'm going to sew this one big block up together. And here is this part of the block. It seems like all the seams match well. If you don't want to construct yours the way I did mine, you can always flip, like I said in the beginning, and do the smaller corners in together. So the next step, I'll sew these. Somebody's here. Can you hear the beeping? So let's see, how well did my seams nest? And they are all pretty good, except this one right here. Let's see if we can turn this way. All did really well except one. So keeping your seams turned the right way will almost always result in everything coming together. So I'm going to finish sewing this block up. Okay, so here are the blocks that I've got sewn together so far on part one. On the flip side, Scrappy Quilt, that will be the name of this, and this is part one. I still have, let's see, 6 blocks yet to sew, but so 6 more blocks to go. And when I put out part two of On the Flip Side, Scrappy Quilt, I will also announce the winners of the 10,000 subscriber gifting that I do. Remember, I try not to say that other G word on here because there's trolls. But instead of doing 3 winners, since it's taken me so long to get to the winners, I'm going to do 2 more. So I'm going to have 5 winners all together on that video. And that will be coming out as soon as I get the other 6 blocks sewn up. I will announce all those winners. So stay tuned for the part 2 of On the Flip Side, Scrappy Quilt. And see, I don't even have the blocks. I want to get all my blocks because I may want to mix them around. And they're in the big 16.5 inch unfinished segments right now. And this is my new design wall. Yay! So I got that done. So that is what I have for this video. I have all the tutorial in the beginning and with all the measurements and all that. So if you haven't watched my 10,000 subscriber video and you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch it. I'll put the link to that video in the description box so you can make your comment on that video. So I've got 3 already drawn, and I'm going to do 2 more, and that will be done this week. So hopefully by Friday, that is my goal, I'll have part 2 of this On the Flip Side Scrappy Quilt. So I'll see you on the next one. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.